Good morning slash afternoon. Lord, help me make this video. Keep the devil from stopping my video and frustrating me so that I don't make the video. Amen. Okay, so today we are doing a read through of the second testimony of Caiaphas, which is the report of Caiaphas to the Sanhedrin concerning the resurrection of Jesus. The last one was regarding the execution of Jesus. This one is the resurrection of Jesus. So there is there should be like a little intro in the front. Okay, yeah, it is already in there. Okay, so I'm gonna read a little bit of this intro, which is just the people, the authors of the book, giving a little intro as to like where they found these things and how and what condition they found them. Just giving a little credibility while we're on our historical document trained here. So this is chapter 7. After having made the preceding record of Caiaphas on unwinding the same scroll, we found another report from him. It may be interesting to the reader to know that what we mean by a scroll. It is similar to parchment. The Hebrew word numet means a pulp made from the bark of the reed into a paste and dried in the sun until it is hard. When pressed and polished, it shines beautifully, and its surface is as smooth as our paper. It is of two kinds. One is called papyrus, and the other whatever. Hierotike, I don't know. The latter is more costly and is used by priests alone. It is about 16 inches wide and is cemented together by a gum that exudes from a tree resembling our elm. It is written upon with some kind of indelible ink or paint with a common reed quill, which is fashioned like our pens. The writing is done by the sofer, which is the Hebrew word for scribe. He is called grammateus by the Greeks. The report of Caiaphas is written in what is known as the square Hebrew. The letters are from a half inch to an inch in size, so that one can imagine what a roll of parchment it would take to record a deed. It is read only with difficulty by the best Hebrew scholars, and they must have textbooks to assist them. But after one has gotten the thread of the subject, he can get along with it. This is the reason why I got Dr. McIntosh to go with me. He and Dr. Twyman have been in the business for many years. The windlass, as it might be called, for it more resembles our common rope winders than anything I can think of, is a square piece of timber about 3 inches in diameter, to which the scroll is fastened at one end, around which it is rolled like a spool. At the proper distance are tied 2 transverse sticks to hold the parchment to its proper place. The windlass with the scroll is placed at one end of a table, and an empty windlass at the other end, so that as you unwind from one to read, the scroll winds around the other. The letters are very distinct. There are hundreds of these arranged in rows. They are all lettered and numbered with their dates on them. This makes it easy to find anything desired. There is another class of books of fine sheep or goat skin, about 8 by 12 inches. The writing on these is very fine and difficult to read. They are bound between cedar boards with clasps and contain from 8 to 40 sheets to the book. These are the kind of books of which Josephus wrote 72. But to return to Caiaphas's report, after unwinding several feet, as before stated, we came across another communication from Caiaphas. I hardly know whether to call it a resignation or a confession. One thing I do know, it is one of the most solemn things I have ever read. We thanked God that we had come to Constantinople, and that Muhammad had given orders to preserve these sacred scrolls in the mosque of Saint Sophia. So that's where it says that the Muslims had preserved this, which I think is pretty great, pretty ingenious by God. And when you think about it, if you watch my channel, I pretty much see all of this in terms of like, yes, there's some human intervention going on, but the God of this world does not want the stuff preserved. So the fact that this stuff is so hard to come by, that libraries keep burning down, because, like, when you think about it, like, it's just like, it's just some menacing group wearing all black and wearing masks that, they say they have their reasons for burning things down, but they're really just working for the devil, honestly. It's just like, wake up, people. It's like he gets a proxy group, makes up a fake reason to go around destroying evidence of things. I mean, I'm pretty sure America has done that at some point. I'm sure Hillary Clinton has done that at some point. Crap. Now my freaking video is going to get taken down. Anyways, so allegedly. So it's very ingenious that, it got hidden in a place where, centuries from now, probably no one would think to look. And speaking of the God of this world, I mean, I think in the first couple hundred years of Christianity and a couple hundred years of Islam, really, he's changing strategies depending on what needs to happen. He probably figured out uh, pretty soon after the fact that um, persecution was not working on the Christians. That was making things worse. He needed to come up with something different. So you can almost see through history him figuring out different ways to approach the Christian problem. Because, I mean, initially, yeah, the first thing is like, okay, well, let's just destroy them. Let's eradicate them. Let's scatter them. Let's frustrate their things. And that was not working. So it's like, okay, let's try just welcoming them into the flock and just saying, okay, well, congratulations, you're part of society. I'm a Christian too now. Woo! And then trying to sort of infiltrate. Anyways, I can see how this stuff could probably survive, and it wasn't, you know, part of the plan early on. But now we get to a point, now we're to a point where uh, knowledge is so he's relying on people's ignorance to keep anybody from really looking at everything. Because now that we have an internet where everything is just being like put onto the computer and you can, at the click of a button, you can look it up, there should really be no reason for people to be as ignorant as they are. But if he can, so the plan is a little different. He's got to get you uh, to self censor. And so we see a lot of that. We see a lot of uh, the demoralization of, well, is this even real what you're even looking at? Are your fingers even real? A lot of questioning over questioning over questioning, and having that seem like the super smart, super, the coolest thing to do is to question your question. And so to constantly never be assured of information, it's like that is what he's using now, because as knowledge is increasing, he's got to keep you from looking at the plain obvious things like this book that has been photocopied and downloaded, and you can just get it and it's free and it's not in a hidden place. But if you already have the thing of like, well, none of this is real, this is forged. If people knew about it, they would have known about it already, blah, blah, blah. And trust the science and trust the whatevers. You could read it and still not believe it. Like, he's made it so that this doesn't have to penetrate. And so, yeah, I can see, like, if Muhammad had a bunch of this stuff, it probably wasn't. I mean, everybody knew that Jesus existed. Nobody was questioning that in the year 500 or whenever they found this stuff or whenever they preserved this stuff. That wasn't the question. It was a different question then. The devil was using a different strategy then. Now, thousands of years has gone by, and he's just going, well, did he even really exist? How do we even know? So he's using a whole different thing now. And So yeah, I can totally see these just tucked off, as my husband would say, tucked off in the library somewhere. Or no, this is it's in a mosque, a Saint Sophia Mosque, just in Constantinople. You know what I'm saying? Changing hands over the centuries, blah blah blah. Okay, so anyway, enough of my rebuttal. Okay, so here we go. Sanhedrin 89 by Sifri 2. To you, masters of Israel, as I have made a former defense to you, and you have approved the same, I feel in duty bound to communicate to you some facts that have come to my knowledge since that communication. A few days after the execution of Jesus of Nazareth, the report of his resurrection from the dead became so common that I found it necessary to investigate it, because the excitement was more intense than before, and my own life, as well as that of Pilate, was in danger. Now, like I said in the last video, these are going from super interesting to they're just going up in interest. So same thing with this. So I think we ended, I don't know, somewhere like here. You thought that was the top? No, we're going up. We're still going up. Okay. I sent for Malchus, the captain of the royal city guard, who informed me he knew nothing personally, as he had placed Isham in command of the guard. But from what he could learn from the soldiers, the scene was awe-inspiring, and the report was so generally believed that it was useless to deny it. He thought my only chance was to suppress it among the soldiers and have John and Peter banished to Crete. I love this letter so much. Just hearing these people, it's like listening to the Avengers or something. John and Peter banished to Crete or arrested and imprisoned, and if they would not be quiet, to treat them as I had treated Jesus. He said that all the soldiers he had conversed with were convinced that Jesus was resurrected by supernatural power and was still living, and that he was no human being, for the light and the angels and the dead that came out of their graves all went to prove that something had happened that never occurred on earth before. He said that John and Peter were spreading it all over the country, and that if Jesus would appear at the head of a host and declare for the King of the Jews, he believed all the Jews would fight for him. I sent for the lieutenant, who gave a lengthy account of the occurrence that morning, all of which I suppose you have learned and will investigate. From this, I am convinced that something transcending the laws of nature took place that morning that cannot be accounted for upon natural laws, and I find it is useless to try to get any of the soldiers to deny it, for they are so excited that they cannot be reasoned with. I regret that I had the soldiers placed at the tomb, for the very things that they were to prevent, they have helped to establish. Now, I just got to stop for just collect your brain, because I know it's probably leaking out. It should be leaking out. When I clicked on this, the two videos that had somebody reading this, the first one was, the first one I clicked on was these two things from Caiaphas. And then there was another one that was the letter of Pontius Pilate. Now, the letter of Pontius Pilate had gone viral basically and was like almost to 1 million views since she had posted it. It was like 9 months old or something. This one was also 9 months old and it only had like 200,000 views. Now, we love a letter from Pilate. I mean, the letter from Pilate's good. I'm probably going to read that too. This blew my mind, and it needs so many more eyes, because like I was talking about yesterday about just entertaining ideas, and I previously when I was talking about Dune and the whole false messiah thing, and how when they want to put ideas into the culture, they use movies because yeah, they use scholars too sometimes, but they understand they know that you're not an intellectual being. They know that you're an emotional being. They know that you ideas get planted. They know about seeds. They are Luciferian. They know all of the spiritual stuff that we Christians know. They're just using it differently. So I need you to get into your, this is how we fight back, okay? We're going to get into our imaginations, which is the best movie screen there is, and I need you to visualize this and see if anything gets planted, because that's really what we're doing. You trying to like safeguard your brain from all of the false ideas is ridiculous, especially when you live in this world. Because if you're getting up in the morning and going to work, you're already in the matrix. Like, forget it. Like, if you're still doing what they're saying to do, which we all are doing, and that's fine, but you need to combat the way that you combat all of this nonsense is through the same methods. Entertain this. Really listen to this letter and really come away with some insight, because your brain, we are wired for story. I remember seeing that in an article one time. It's a scientific article. It's like, we are wired for story. It was so obnoxious. It was just like the height of obnoxious. That's why I remember it so well, because I was just so traumatized by how hypocritical it was. Like, who wired you for story? What are we talking about? Evolution wired you for story? It's just so stupid. But it is true, okay? We can literally memorize whole swaths of information if you put it in the story form. If you just lay it out as facts, it's going out in one ear, out the other. That's why people talk about your favorite history teacher who can make it come alive for you. Basically, he put it in a story. There were stakes, there was this, there was that. That's not, oh, we're opposing narrative structure on the thing, on the life, which is really just no. Just because you had a documentary and you had 12 hours of footage and you couldn't find any story in it doesn't mean that this thing is a story. Is not a story. This thing is a story. It's the most story that's ever storied. So really, like, get into this, because it's about to get wild. Like, I need you to like really be here with me with this, okay? After questioning the soldiers and officers to my satisfaction, my mind being so disturbed, poor Caiaphas, oh my God. My mind being so disturbed that I could neither eat nor sleep, I sent for John and Peter. They came and brought Mary and Joanna, who are the women that went to embalm Jesus' body the morning of the resurrection, as it is called. Now, I know for a fact that he's talking about Mary Magdalene, because he's literally saying the same story as is in the Gospels. So we don't need to, which Mary? There's a couple Marys. No, he's talking about Mary Magdalene. Joanna, shout out to Joanna. She's not in the Gospels. They were very interesting as they related the circumstances. Mary says that when they went, the day was just breaking. They met the soldiers returning from the sepulchre and saw nothing strange until they came to the tomb and found that it was empty. The stone that covered the sepulchre was rolled to one side, and two men dressed in flowing white were sitting, one at each end of the sepulchre. Mary asked them where was her Lord. They said, "He is risen from the dead. Did he not tell you he would rise the third day and show himself to the people to prove that he was the Lord of life?" "Go tell his disciples," said they. Joanna said she saw but one man. But this discrepancy must have been due to their excitement, because they say they were much alarmed. Okay, so the part of you that wants to say, okay, this is a fake thing that was whatever, first of all, again, we got to think about some Christian person, because they would have to be a Christian person if that's where we're going with it, sitting around making fake parchment scroll rolls to hide this in a library, in a Muslim library, so that somebody could come across it later and, get there. I mean, this is not the same as like what do you call it? Astroturfing? Like, astroturfing is a very immediate process. You go on, you get bots and you get everybody saying the same thing. You pay people in India to create fake accounts to say the same thing. that takes like a couple of minutes. Nobody's astroturfing in the year, whatever year this was. So it's probably, and also, is it Christian? Or is at this point this is still Jewish territory? Like, if Caiaphas is real, this is what he would be talking about. If and the fact that the stories are so, like, this is basically the exact thing. This is the exact story. But also, look, he's concerned with the details. Joanna said she only saw one. Mary said she saw two. Like, this is forensics being done in the year 2000, or not 2000, but the year zero, 30, 45, whatever year this is. I mean, it sounds pretty immediate. It sounds like he's doing it as it's happening. So this would be 33, 35. I don't know. Okay. Where did I stop? They both say that as they returned, they met the Master, who told them that he was the resurrection and the life. Again, this is what we say all the time as Christians. All that will accept shall be resurrected from the second death. We fell at his feet, all bathed in tears, and when we rose up, he was gone. That was in quotes. Both these women wept for joy while relating these circumstances, and John shouted aloud, which made me tremble in every limb, for I could not help thinking that something that was the exclusive work of God had occurred, but what it all meant was a great mystery to me. I cannot tell you how it broke my brain to hear somebody outside of the Bible refer to these people, talk about their reactions to information, because the Gospels are pretty sober, as far as like how it relays information. It's literally, you can tell it's just there to give facts of things that happen. And yes, everything that is mentioned in here is in the Gospels. And you can go, oh, well, why isn't there any new? But honestly, you're going to remember that the stone was rolled away. You're going to remember. That's the stuff that you're going to tell somebody probably first. Like, it doesn't surprise me either that the same information that's in the Gospels is the same information in this letter. So that doesn't, that's, yes, it could be, propaganda or whatever. But also, this is the story you would tell. This is the story anybody would tell. It's just amazing to see to see potentially their reactions right after this stuff is occurring is like blowing my mind. It's so just a precious thing. Okay, it might be, I said, that God had sent this message by the mouth of this stranger, talking about Jesus. It might be that he was the seed of the woman, and we, his people, had executed him. I mean, Caiaphas, shout out to Caiaphas. Okay, I asked John and Peter if they could give me any further evidence in regard to this man, that I wish to be informed of his private history. Now, I thought about this for a while because this is the first time Caiaphas is sort of digging into like who this guy actually was. And I thought, is this really like the order in which someone would do that? But then I was thinking, yeah, probably. Because if you're just thinking that he's just a rabble rouser weirdo, then you just want him to stop and you're just going to send him, you're not going to go like, let's look into this guy. Like, unless you're the devil. Like, the devil wants to look into you immediately because he wants to find out what your weaknesses are and who your people are and what they can hit you with and blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't that deep for him. Caiaphas literally had no idea what was going on. He just wanted Jesus to quit doing what he was doing. Now he's become important. Now it's become, okay, who is this guy again? Like, what is going on? Like, what did you know? Now he wants to know more because he has to. So I can see there is an argument for this being the order that he would ask about Jesus's history. So prepare to get your mind even more blown, because Peter is about to give him some information. I asked John and Peter if they could give me any further evidence regard to this man, that I wished to be informed of his private history. Peter said that Jesus passed by where he was. So this is Peter talking about his being called to be a disciple, which is also a very interesting story, way more measured than I thought he was going to say. Peter said that Jesus passed by where he was and bade him follow him, and he felt attracted to him, but at first it was more through curiosity than anything in the man. That he soon became acquainted with Mary, this would be his mother, who told him that he was her son and related to him the strange circumstances of his birth, and that she was convinced that he was to be the king of the Jews. I love that this was like a family story. She spoke of many strange things concerning his life, which made Peter feel more interested in him than he would have been otherwise. He said that Jesus was a man so pleasant in his character and so like a child in innocence that no one could help liking him after he got acquainted with him. That though he seemed to be stern and cold, he was not so in reality, that he was exceedingly kind, especially to the poor, that he would make any sacrifice for the sick and needy, and would spare no effort to impart knowledge to anyone that would call on him, and that his knowledge was so profound that he had seen him interrogated by the most learned doctors of the law, and he always gave the most perfect satisfaction, and that the Soper or scribes and the Hillelites and Shammaites were afraid to open their mouths in his presence. They had attacked him so often and been repelled that they shunned him as they would a wolf. But when he had repelled them, he did not enjoy the triumph as they did over others of whom they had gotten their ascendancy. Now, the first time I read this out loud, I was bawling. Because the way that the picture came into focus even more after reading this, like, is this generally what we know about him? Yes, meek and mild, all of these adjectives. But the idea of Peter relaying this to Caiaphas and him talking about, like, first, like, when he first called me, I was just, like, curious to see what was going on. And then, like, this is an embarrassment of riches right now. This is an embarrassment of riches. Like, how, like, even if this was just like we're talking about entertaining, if this scene was in a TV show, I'd be bawling, crying, and I'd be just loving God and Jesus. And then I'd open the scriptures and they would pop out at me like they're doing right now. Okay, that part about them, so they were afraid to open their mouths around him. Why? Because they're just going to look like baby children trying to talk to somebody. Like, they could, they'd sit and pontificate or whatever between each other. But, like, when he was around, they just locked it up. And the way that Peter points out, like, yeah, he would, slice them and dice them, but he was never happy about it afterwards. Like, that's so something to notice. Even if this is a fake thing, that's so something to notice of a person. Like, that's somebody who saw that and noticed that. Okay. As to his private life, he seemed not to be a man of pleasure nor of sorrow. He mingled with society to benefit it, and yet took no part at all in what was going on. I love this sentence. It really, when you're trying to picture like what Jesus was doing at these tables, being a friend of sinners and letting harlots touch him and all of this stuff, what was his manner? And he would be there. He would be at the bar with you, and he would have some water or maybe nothing, which at that time would have been completely an unheard of thing. Like I was just thinking this morning about these little Christian influences on society that we don't notice. I mean, that whole idea of like winning someone over with kindness and being like, clearly that was a new idea. Like Caiaphas was like, okay, like the idea of applying the things of God in your life all the time, like really applying it to your life and not just the temple, not just in the holy places where the holiness is, but just like being like this all the time. And this is something that modern society, all of modern society really shares this. And only the places where Christianity hasn't had the primary influence for however many centuries, where you see this idea having to be reintroduced as a new one. But all of Christendom, it's like, oh yeah, even something like killing with kindness is something that has Christianity as at its root. I think about like hospitals who are just like when anybody's injured, they just take care of that person. You could have been the gun wielding whatever, but you have a gunshot wound, they're going to heal you, or they're going to treat you. And if you ask them why, if you ask anybody why, they'll just, well, that's just what you do. That's just what you do. And they get some like pride in it. That's fine. But that's this. Nobody was doing that. Like, this sounds crazy. And just the idea of harlots touching him, lepers touching him, like, that is why Pilate said, if this guy had an army, he would take over the world, because everything was segmented in society. It was like, and that was normal. It was like everybody, if there was a way for you to be above somebody, you took advantage of that. You did that, and you can see that a little bit now still in a sort of a classism way. But there's always somebody who can be like, come like Jesus with that energy and sort of shame you. But and you know what that shame is from. This was just kind of like, what are you doing? You know, why are you letting that person touch you? Why are you letting that person come near you? You're a this, they're a that. And that is natural human. I mean, I think about when Joseph was in Egypt, and they were happy for him and stuff, and his family was there, and they're like, that's so super cool, but we're not going to eat with you. You're Jew. Like, they don't eat, they don't sit with Jews. It's like, that is just human stuff. And that was, you took advantage of that when you had it. So when he came through with that energy, with this God energy, and he was just letting any old person come up to him and talk to him, and like, there, he's about to talk more about this, about what he would do. It was instant. He was a literal celebrity from that, just from that. So just to see like, oh, that was the power, because we're 2,000 years removed from it. We're like, yeah, we've seen like prominent good people rise up, and we can see it. But to really see that initial impact of him on Earth was like, he just magnetized everybody. Okay, so I had heard. Okay, so this is now in quotes. So this is now Peter talking, not Caiaphas talking. Okay, I had heard many tell of what occurred when he was baptized, and from what his mother told me, I was waiting. I was watching for a display of his divine power, if he had any. For I knew he could never be king of the Jews unless he did have help from on high. Once, when we were attending a marriage feast, the wine gave out, and his mother told him of it. And he said to the men, fill up some water pots that were sitting near, and they put in nothing but water, for I watched them. This is Peter. But when they poured it out, it was wine, for it tasted by all at the feast. For it was tasted by all at the feast. And when the master found out, he called for Jesus to honor him, but he had disappeared. It seemed that he did not want to be popular. Guys, when I read this, I like that little detail. And it's new information, but it's not. Same thing as like all of this other stuff that's like so profound. Like, all it says is that they tasted it at the feast, and that the master of the house was like, you know, everyone else, when they bring the wine out, after everybody's had their fill, they bring out the cheapest stuff because everybody's drunk. It doesn't matter. But you've saved the best for last. And that's like the last thing from that story. So you don't see whether Jesus is there or not. You infer that he is. Peter says they went to go find him, and they couldn't find him, which he has done in other parts of the story. So like we see him doing that a lot, where they look around for him and he's gone. But just to see that, I can't even tell you. This perspective is blowing my mind. It seemed that he did not want to be popular, and this spirit displeased us, for we knew if he was to be king of the Jews, he must become popular with the Jews. So I love this idea that his mama, like, he had been talking about being the king of the Jews. Everybody knew that is what he thought, like anybody in his circle. Now, his mama is obviously going to champion this because she knows what happened to her, okay? And, maybe his immediate family, he's talking about it. He's not just keeping it to himself and just one day up and doing it. But I love it because this is so human, whatever, because everybody's like, okay, but how though? Like, how? Don't you need to go up to some place? He just keeps talking about it. And he just looks weird. He just looks like a weirdo. I cannot believe it's so obvious. Like, he just looks like a weirdo. And then the disciples around him are like, okay, like, but he keeps disappearing. So they're looking at it, they're like, if you want to do this in a human way, this is what you got to do. And this is the obvious thing you got to do. Why aren't you doing it? Everyone is frustrated with him. Even the people that are supporting him don't understand what he's doing. But this is why you have to use his life because this is someone who you knew how it was going to turn out, and it was still just as weird as everyone else's life here. His life was just as weird as everyone else's life here, and he's literally the king of the universe. You're not going to out-weird. Your life's going to be just as weird as his. Like, this place is just making it necessary that everyone has to do a weird thing. Like, the nature of this place is sorry. It's just what it is. His behavior angered his mother, for she was doing all she could to bring him into notice and to make him popular among the people, and the people could not help liking him when they saw him. Another peculiarity was that in his presence, everyone felt safe. Again, mind blown to hear this detail. This is someone who knows. I'm sorry, this is real. There seemed to be an almighty power pervading the air whenever he went, so that everyone felt secure and believed that no harm could befall them if Jesus were present. Makes complete and total sense. As we were in our fishing boat, I saw Jesus coming out toward us, walking on the water. He just casually brings this up. I knew that if he could make the waves support him, he could me also. I asked him if I might come to him, and he said to me, come. But when I saw the waves gathering around me, I began to sink and asked him to help me. He lifted me up and told me to have faith in God. On another occasion, we were sailing on the sea, and there was a great storm. It blew at a fearful rate, and all on board thought they would be lost. We awakened the master, and when he saw the raging of the storm, he stretched out his hand and said, "Peace, be still." And the wind ceased to blow, the thunder stopped, the lightning withdrew, and the billowing sea seemed quiet as a babe in its mother's arms. All done in one moment of time. This I saw with my own eyes, and from that time I was convinced that he was not a common man. So there's, again, if you're wrestling with the information, and you're going, okay, this is the same story we all know. Okay, you could take that to mean like they put these in the Gospels because these were the stories that came to their mind. These were their favorite stories. These were their most compelling stories, and that's why they're getting told multiple times. Also, if it was a completely different story, what would your brain say then? What would your brain say then? We never heard the story. Oh, we don't know the. So, poor Peter can't win. The scroll can't win. So, you're gonna have to just bypass the system and read it, because yeah, no, we know that we're not supposed to accept this. We know that. It's been well established. Do you want to, though? Because life is clearly more than, is this information correct or not? Like, clearly no one is living by that. They're living by that until they don't want to do that anymore. So what is the point? Like, we can only assess this so much. I'm trying my best to be scientific about it, but I'm just basically geeking out over it. Neither did he work by enchantment. Let me back up a little bit. I was convinced that he was not a common man. Neither did he work by enchantment like the Egyptian thaumaturgists, which is what Caiaphas accused him of doing. And Peter's going, no, no, no. For in all their tricks, they never attack the laws of nature. Boom, bam, come on, Peter. Just plain old fishermen. Oh, these were just uneducated fishermen. What does that have to do with being in the whole presence of Jesus and having an opinion about it and having your brain come up with stuff? Like, okay. In vain, they might order the thunder to hush, or the winds to abate, or the lightnings to cease their flashing. Again, I saw this man while we were passing from Jericho. There was a blind man who cried out to him for mercy. And Jesus said to me, "Go bring him near." And when I brought him near, Jesus asked him what he wanted. He said he wanted to see him. Jesus said, "Receive thy sight." When he was not near enough for Jesus to lay hands upon him or use any art. Thus were all his miracles performed. He did not act as the Egyptian necromancers. They used vessels such as cups, bags, and jugs, and many other things to deceive. Jesus used nothing but his simple speech in such a way that all could understand him. And it seemed as if the laws of nature were his main instruments of action, and that nature was as obedient to him as a slave is to his master. Listen, one thing Peter gonna do is get you converted, okay? Okay? Like, it's like, it's not even, it's like he's reminding me. It's not even like, I feel like Peter is reminding me, like literally he's just talking to me. He's like, listen, don't let these people out here compare him to a magician. He wasn't using no pots. He didn't have it wasn't none of that. He didn't have a rabbit or a hat. And this here nature just did whatever he wanted. You find me somebody who can just, they might shout it out, but does it work? Like, and like you forget that. You get wrapped up in somebody's argument and you're like, oh yeah. And you got to go back to the book. It's like, no, let's just think of it. Like, just see it. Just see it in your brain. Oh my God, dude. I recall another occasion when a young man was dead and Jesus loved his sisters. Any idea who we're talking about? One of them went with Jesus to the tomb. He commanded it to be uncovered. The sister said, Master, by this time he is offensive. He has been dead 4 days. Jesus said, Only have faith. And he called the young man by name, and he came forth out of the tomb and is living today. And Peter proposed that I should see him for myself. So it goes back to Caiaphas. So that was what Peter said. Peter said, Go visit him and talk to him. You should probably do that. Thus argue Peter and John. If Jesus had such power over nature and nature's laws, and power over death and others, he would have such a power over death that he could lay down his life and take it up again, as he said he would do. So now, again, this is Caiaphas talking, but he's paraphrasing Peter and John still talking. But all of that before that was Peter's personal first person testimony. Okay. Just in case you're not reading along, I want to make sure you're not confused. Okay. As he proposes to bring hundreds of witnesses to prove all he says and much more, witnesses whose veracity cannot be doubted. And as I heard many of these things before from different men, both friends and foes, and although these things are related by his friends, that is, the friends of Jesus, yet these men talk like men of truth, and their testimony corroborates other evidence that I have from other sources that convinces me that this is something that should not be rashly dealt with. And seeing the humble trust and confidence of these men and women, besides, as John says, thousands of others equally strong in their belief, it throws me into great agitation. I feel some dreadful foreboding. My brain. Stop saying forbade. I feel some dreadful foreboding, a weight in my heart. I cannot feel as a criminal from the fact that I was acting according to my best judgment with the evidence before me. I feel that I was acting in defense of God and my country, which I love better than my life. And if I was mistaken, I was honest in my mistake. And as we teach that honesty of purpose gives character to the action, on this basis I shall try to clear myself of any charge, yet there is a conscious fear about my heart, so that I have no rest day or night. I feel sure that if I should meet Jesus, I would fall dead at his feet. And it seemed to me if I went out, I should be sure to meet him. In this state of conscious dread, I remained investigating the scriptures to know more about the prophecies concerning this man, but found nothing to satisfy my mind. I locked my door and gave the guards orders to let no one in without first giving me notice. While thus engaged, with no one in the room but my wife and Annas, her father, when I lifted up my eyes, behold, Jesus of Nazareth stood before me. My heart stopped, my blood ran cold, and I was in the act of falling, when he spoke and said, Be not afraid, it is I. You condemned me that you might go free. This is the work of my Father. Your only wrong is, you have a wicked heart. This you must repent of. Okay, before I say this last thing that is also blowing my brain. The whole thing's blowing my brain, but honestly, this is the most, this part, while it seems it can seem to the skeptic kind of like, okay, this is pretty normal. This is pretty normal Christian behavior, normal Christian testimony. It's pretty average to have Jesus just kind of appear. If you listen to a lot of testimonies, which I have done, I listened to just, you should do it. It really strengthens your faith. Muslims, he's appearing to the Muslims right now. Go look that up. Just surprises me. So this is pretty normal. But like even what he says to him is so, it's so in keeping with not what like you would hear in a pulpit, what you hear from average people's testimonies. Like this is Jesus talking like he talks to people. Like it's always a little bit more like pastors don't even really deal in these type of testimonies, at least not anymore. So you're never going to hear this from the church. You're never going to hear something like this from the church. You have to go out and listen to people talk about Jesus appearing to them. And I'm all the way done with skeptics. Honestly, you guys are just lame and ridiculous. It doesn't matter who Jesus appears to. You're gonna say, "Well, why would he appear to you? What's so special about you?" It's so obnoxious and stupid. Like, do you not get like that's not what the measurement is? Is not what your idea of special is? Like, just enough with that. It's totally in keeping with his personality of these stories to appear to Caiaphas. He loves Caiaphas. Not surprised that he did that. Not surprised that he did that while he was searching the scriptures, and also Jesus does God everybody Jesus God Holy Spirit does tend to act when he's trying to help your brain too. He's not just going to leave your brain out in the lurch. So he made sure he appeared when he had the doors locked and he told everybody don't let anybody in or out, so that he couldn't like talk himself out of that. So he will do that personally with you, because he does understand that it's important and there's a lot of deception out here. So I love what he says. You condemn me that you might go free. I mean, that could go in the Bible today. That could go in the Bible today. This is the work of my Father. Your only wrong is you have a wicked heart. This you must repent of. He's just like, here's the one thing that I have a fault with you. This is what it is. Let's rectify it right now. That's Jesus's thing all day. But this is where he blew my brain, like normal. My normal brain blowing process with Jesus. He says, "This you must repent of. This last lamb you have slain is the one that was appointed before the foundation. This sacrifice is made for all men. Your other lambs were for those who offered them. This is for all. This is the last. It is for you, if you will accept it. I died that you and all mankind might be saved." This letter is clearing up my theology, like just clearing the cobwebs out and just, bro. The idea that he's saying, oh no, all those other sacrifices were valid for that time. It goes with that time. It's almost like compensation. Like, I know I completely wrecked your religion. Here's the compensation for the things that were wrecked. We will we will be honoring every sacrifice that came before this one, but this will be the last. Like, oh my God. That's so great that I'm a Christian. I already believe this, and it's like I re-believe it. This is just hitting me, dude. I'm re-believing it because it's so deep and right. It's just covering it all. It's just covering all the bases. It's just beautiful. It's so beautiful. No man could come up with this. I'm just tired of trying to say it, dude. It's just amazing. I'm going to read it again. This last lamb you have slain is the one that was appointed before the foundation of the world he's talking about. This sacrifice is made for all men. Your other lambs were for those who offered them. Shout out to them. This is for all. This is the last. It is for you, if you will accept it. No harm done, no hard feelings. I meant what I said. The way that I lived on earth is the way I'm always living. I meant what I said. I'm not going to hold a grudge against you. Take the sacrifice, take it, and live, and be my friend. I died that you and all mankind might be saved. At this he looked at me with such melting tenderness that it seemed to me I was nothing but tears. and my strength was all gone. I fell on my face at his feet as one that was dead. Also very common. When Annas lifted me up, Jesus was gone and the door was still locked. No one could tell when or where he went. So this is the last sort of part that really solidifies the realness of this, because I guarantee you, if this was a fake Christian trolling astroturf thing, it would be like, hallelujah, I'm a Christian now. I mean, we all know that, right? Especially if it's old, a couple hundred years old, however old. It's like, I'm a Christian now. Praise, whatever. This is what he ends with. So, noble masters, I do not feel that I can officiate as priest anymore. If this strange personage is from God and should prove to be the Savior we have looked for so long, and I have been the means of crucifying him, I have no further offerings to make for sin. But I will wait and see how these things will develop. And if he proves to be the ruler that we are looking for, they will soon develop into something more grand in the future. His glory will increase. His influence will spread wider and wider until the whole earth shall be full of his glory, which sounds Christian, but he's quoting the Old Testament there. And all the kingdoms of the world shall be his dominion, Old Testament. Such are the teachings of the prophets on this subject. Therefore, you will appoint Jonathan or someone to fill the holy place. And then in brackets it says, we found that soon after Jonathan became high priest, though history teaches us differently. And then it's signed Mahan or something. That ending rivals any sort of Hollywood. Like, that is such a sober, somber ending. That's so modern that I could barf. He didn't have no answers to no questions at the end of that. Everything's still up in the air for him. He's like, the resolution is, I'm not high priest anymore. That's your resolution. That's his arc. I'm retiring. I'm firing myself. I quit this. Which is so like, that is such a good ending though. I'm not complaining. I love that. He is jacked up. He's jacked up. And even this vision of Jesus is not helping him not be jacked. He's like, yeah, I hear you, but I need a minute, dude. Because this Judaism is his whole life. And this religion is his whole life. And Jesus coming through with all his power and glory talking about, yeah, and just the idea that you could be the one to drop this ancient ball. This ancient ball. You dropped the ancient ball. Like, he's just like, you set out to be the high priest and to be, not only are you not trying to have the whole entire religion just crumble and disintegrate on your watch. What's even worse than that? What's worse than that is to crucify the Messiah. Like this is such a harsh thing that God set us up for. But I understand. It's like, you need to see how bad you are. Even when I told you from the jump what it was going to be, I described him to the letter. I had Isaiah describe him to the letter. I told you how glorious it was going to be. I got you all hyped up for it, and you still did what you did, because that is how bad you are. You needed him to come. It's okay, though, because you needed him to come do what he did, but I just need you to see. Do you see now why that needed to happen? This isn't just you being part of my super cool secret plan. Like, it's so, for Caiaphas, it's so literal that it's like, how does your brain not break? He literally crucified him. Like, I love this letter. We are done for today. We're officially at an hour. I'm going to do the pilot letter probably next. The pilot letter is pretty cool. But yes, what can we say about this? What can we flipping say about this? Like, this is a journey every Christian should be going on. Every Christian should be reading this stuff. If you're not converted, I won't tell you what to do, but every Christian needs to be reading this stuff. It is incredible. Incredible. It is going to bring you closer to God, closer than your Netflix show. So I don't want to hear any guff about where did you get it and is it real, blah, blah, blah. Just freaking consume the good stuff. This is good content right here. This is the good media that we need to be looking at. Okay, I'm done with my soapbox. I will see y'all tomorrow. Y'all be blessed.